Good afternoon, everyone. This is Professor Hill. This is a short video for our class, Introduction to Ethics Philosophy 2306. This is the Maymester of 2022. Today is Saturday, the 21st of May, 2022, and we are at the end of our first week of class for our Maymester course. And so since this is such a tight, compressed class, I wanted to do a Saturday video for you because hey, we're trying to cram it all into 3 weeks. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about this case study. The very first one we've had to deal with after reading chapter 1 in our textbook, Doing Ethics by Lewis Vaughn. And it involves the sad, tragic tale of Jenni Lake and the decision she had to make. I mentioned yesterday in yesterday's video that it was important to focus on who was the decision maker, and the fact that in this particular case, because Jenni was a minor, it really fell to her mom, and the mom has responsibility for making medical decisions about minor children until they turn 18, or as I mentioned yesterday, given an unusual set of circumstances, you could apply for emancipation to be free to make your own decisions even as a minor. And but in this case, the mom and the daughter were in agreement, so there wasn't any need for that. It just became the question of, whose call was it? And it was really the mom's. Now, I had also said that I would compare Jenni Lake's case with another different one today that also involved a young minor with cancer who refused chemotherapy. But it's a very different set of circumstances. And though comparing the two raises some really profound and difficult questions for this case. Now, it turns out that in this other case, this happened in Connecticut. And there was a young girl, her name was Cassandra Callendar. And her mom was Jackie Fortin. So Cassandra is only 16 when she's actually diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. Now, it's a type of cancer. It's different than the kind of brain tumor that we were looking at with Jenni Lake. But here, again, it's cancer. It's fatal if it goes untreated. And in this case, the doctors are happy to say to her, look, the good news is, with aggressive chemotherapy, which we can do because you're otherwise healthy before you start this battle, after 5 years, 85% of the people that have gone through this treatment with chemotherapy for the type of cancer that you have at the stage that you have it, 85% are alive and in remission and doing okay. So your survival rate is pretty good with this chemotherapy. So, let's get started. But she says, hold the phone. I don't want to do the chemotherapy. And the doctors are like, okay, why is that? And she says, well, I've read on the internet that this is poison and that you're trying to kill me, that the repercussions are really serious. There's organ failure, and I read about all kinds of horrible stuff. And there are people out there saying that what I really need to do is just eat right. And if I ate more vegetables, I could cure the cancer myself. And I don't really need the chemotherapy, which will just harm me. Now the doctors go, okay, no, it's way more complicated than that. But yes, chemotherapy is a poison in that it's going to kill the cancer cells, and we're going to target it. And yes, there will be side effects because it does hit the body pretty hard. You might lose your hair. You might feel nauseous. There are side effects, but the side effects are limited, and certainly they're better than dying from the cancer. And look, you know what? You're right that it's good to get exercise and eat right and live a healthy lifestyle, but that's not going to magically cure your cancer. You need this chemotherapy. And she's like, nope, sorry, read it on the internet. I'm done not doing it. So then the doctors look at each other and go, well, fortunately, it's not her decision because she's a child. And they turn to the mom, to Jackie Fortin, and they say, Jackie, look, here's the story. Your daughter is mistaken. I know she's read a bunch of stuff on the internet, but it's wrong. The fact of the matter is, she needs to have the chemotherapy. So, sign right here and let's get started. And the mom says, oh no, I agree with Jackie. I agree with Cassandra. Who do you think showed her all these websites? You people are nuts. We're not going to do that. And so now the doctors are like, oh no, it's both the mom as well as the minor child. And so here's the thing. If the mom, Jackie Fortin, was making the decision for herself about her own treatment, the doctors would say, well, look, we can only inform you of the facts. We can recommend treatments. But, you're an adult. You have rights. You can make decisions for yourself. But that wasn't the case here. The mom was making decisions for the daughter. And so the doctors all look at each other and they say, look, here's the thing. You can't refuse. Because now you're talking about making decisions as the parent, which is going to endanger the life of your child. We have an obligation to protect your minor child from you and your terrible decision making, because your decisions are threatening her life. She's going to die from the cancer. And the mom's like, too bad. And the doctors are like, actually, we're going to go to court. So they go to court. And they set it up and they say, look, the judge, this is what's happening. We need to intervene and protect this minor child because the mom is endangering Cassandra. And so at this point, just like we talked about yesterday with the whole emancipation kind of thing, the judge says, maybe what we'll do is just let the girl make the decisions. Can she, under what's called the mature minor rule, be deemed mature enough to make her own decisions? So the judge did what we talked about yesterday, which is looked at the totality of the circumstances, interviewed Cassandra, tried to determine if she was fit and mature enough to make her own decision in this case, and decided that she wasn't. And in fact, the fact that she was getting all this nonsense off the internet was kind of evidence of her immaturity and lack of sophistication enough to sort through what was reliable information and what was not. And the doctors are standing there with, the science and the chemotherapy, and they say, look, if she does the chemotherapy, she's got a really good chance of surviving and being alive. We can save her. Not 100%. The doctors never guarantee, but they're saying the odds are really good. So the judge rules in the favor of the doctors and says, look, we're going to intervene. We're going to terminate, at least temporarily, the parental rights of the mom, take the child into custody, give her the chemotherapy that she needs. And they're like, you've got to be kidding. They're like, nope. And that's exactly what they did. They went to her house with what's in Connecticut's called the Department of Children and Families, DCF. And so there's DCF people there, the cops are there, the doctors are there, and they're like, look, we have a court order to take her into custody, to take her to the hospital, to give her this treatment. Now, there are some people who are outraged by that. They saw it as a violation of the rights of the mom, of the rights of Cassandra. But the fact of the matter is, they did do it legally. They did it through the courts. They did it in a way which the goal was the protection of the rights of this minor child. So they give her the chemotherapy. And as it turns out, at this point, she's turned 17. The chemotherapy takes a couple of months. And when it's done, she hasn't turned 18 yet, but they release her back to the mom. They say, look, we only did this to give her the treatment. Now that she's had the treatment, we're going to release her back to the mom. We didn't think the mom was otherwise unfit. It's just that her decisions around the health care on this issue couldn't be supported. So she finishes the chemotherapy, and they return her to the mom. Believe me, the mom and Cassandra did not write thank you notes to the doctors, but it turns out it worked. It saved her life. Now, it turns out this was all unfolding in 2014. She moves home. She lives with her mom for a while. She's in remission. But then she ends up, she gets a boyfriend, moves in with the boyfriend. And when she turns 20, the cancer comes back. The lymphoma comes back, Hodgkin's lymphoma. And so what happens is now she's an adult and they can't force her to do the chemotherapy. So she doesn't. She sees some guy who's selling, garbage out of his trunk, a real charlatan who's, selling sugar pills as a cancer cure. But she, doesn't want to go back to the doctors and the chemotherapy, but she's continuing to get sicker and sicker. She actually goes to Mexico for a while to do some kind of, again, experimental treatment. You can't even call it treatment. It was like crystals and pyramids and new agey stuff. Not a scientific, even an experimental scientific treatment or drug or something. It was ineffective. So she returns back to Connecticut. She gets sicker and sicker. Well, finally, she gets so sick, she goes back to the doctors at the hospital that treated her the first time. And she says, look, will you help me? And they're like, yeah, we'll give you chemotherapy, but you've waited so long. It's now so advanced. The stage that you're at, your chances now are not very good at all. And so they tried to intervene, but it didn't work. Sadly, I mentioned she had a boyfriend. Over the course of that time period, she also gave birth to twins, 2 little boys. And so she ends up passing away, leaving behind the 2 twin boys, the young boys. The mom, Jackie Fortin, is now raising them and taking care of them and is bitter. She blames the doctors for not... She blames the doctors for not helping Cassandra at the very end, even though they would have gladly helped her at the beginning when the cancer reoccurred. And again, I don't know if they would have been able to save her the second time around. You never know with cancer. But I can tell you her odds would have been better if she had gone straight back to the doctors and started the chemotherapy as soon as she learned she was sick again. But it's just, again, it's a tragic story. Now, here's the interesting thing, and the reason we're talking about this today. Why didn't the same concept apply to Jenni Lake? Jenni Lake was looking at, she's already begun her chemotherapy. She finds out she's pregnant. The doctors say, look, you need to continue your life-saving treatment, the chemotherapy, even though it will, yes, sadly, end the pregnancy. And Jenni Lake says, no, I want to stop. The mother, who's actually the decision maker, again says, okay, then we're going to stop. And the doctors didn't override her decision. I mean, by the same logic from the Cassandra Callendar case, the doctors should have said, no, look, Mom, I'm sorry, but she has to continue the chemotherapy, even though she is pregnant, even though it will terminate the pregnancy. Because our job is to protect our patient, and it's the life of the child that matters here, and that child is your daughter. That's one of the tricky things about this case. A lot of people, when they approach it, they think, well, the parents always need to sacrifice for the child. Jenni Lake did the right thing because she sacrificed her life for her baby. That's, like the mama bear principle. Parents sacrifice even their lives to protect their kids. And yet, in this case, if you apply that to Jenni, then yeah, she stops her chemotherapy, gives up her life to save her child. But she's not the decision maker. You need to apply that rule to the mom. And in that case, mom should have said, look, it hurts me, it pains me, it's difficult for me. But you need to continue your treatment because I have to protect you, my child. I'm willing to sacrifice for you, my child, Jenni. And so if you apply the principle to her, the actual decision maker, she would have continued her chemotherapy and ended the pregnancy. So that principle sounds really good, but in a case like this, it matters where do you apply it. And if you apply it to the actual decision maker, you get the opposite outcome from what we have in reality, the way things actually turned out. So I guess then the question becomes, should the doctors in Jenni Lake's case gone to the courts and said, look, Jenni's mom is making decisions which are endangering her life. She's a minor child. We need to protect her. We need to get custody of her so that we can continue her therapy. And yes, it's going to have these side effects, but our primary concern is Jenni. They didn't do that. And they didn't do it, I think, in part because the odds of survival are different in Jenni's case. There's not a great exact comparison. She had a different type of cancer. But I think the overriding concern was the pregnancy. I think they didn't move to override the mom, to win custody, to force the chemotherapy precisely because Jenni was pregnant. But man, that's a complicated and interesting twist, isn't it, when you compare it to the Cassandra Callendar case? Which also had a sad, tragic ending with, the children surviving, the moms dying. But it's worth thinking about, it's worth comparing, it's worth acknowledging that there are a lot of factors at play here, a lot of relationships, a lot of dynamics, a lot of principles, and that it's not an easy thing. Regardless of where you come down, you can see that it is complicated and there's lots on the other side. So that's the message of the day. I know it's Saturday. I know you've got other things to do. I've got other work to do. But I just wanted to leave this message with everyone and remind you that tomorrow night, Sunday night, is when the first assignment's due. It's the Jenni Lake case. If you've got it in already, great. Start reading chapter 2. Get ahead. If not, get done, get it turned in. And remember, always turn in your assignment first. That's the first thing you do is put yours in and then comment on at least 2. If you do that, you'll be golden, okay? All right. Take care. Keep thinking about this stuff. It's complicated. It's not an easy thing. So take care. Talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.